So, I just want to get like oral confirmation that you're cool with me recording this interview, using it for school, and putting it on my YouTube page.
Yeah, that's all good.
My name is Patrick, and this is my boyfriend River. River, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is River. That's all I got. I don't know what else to say.
Um, so do you want to like tell everybody about a little bit about your identity
Yeah, so
and like
the
your
word I
age?
mostly what'd you say?
Like your age?
Sorry, I'm not good at this. Anyway, I'm 20 years old. I turned 21 in like a couple months. Um, yeah, I'm a college sophomore. My pronouns are they, them, sometimes it, if I like you enough. Um, what else? I just say I'm non-binary is the best way to describe it. I like to say I have animal gender. I definitely identify with like non-human creatures. Um, I really like Pokemon, so a lot of my gender is Pokemon related, like those kinds of creatures. Got werewolf gender, that's what I call it. Um,
Kind of based.
yeah, my friend has made a pride flag. I think he called it lichen gender, so
That's good
um,
for me.
I really like it. It's fun. We are just little dog boys. I guess sexuality wise, I just say I'm gay because I'm mostly attracted to like men and mask people, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Would you like describe yourself as trans mask?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely trans mask. I sometimes I'm like fine with being called he, but like I don't really
Like
prefer
it's
it.
not your favorite, but like you're not gonna get mad about it.
Yeah, he is fine with like
Like
families of like friends who are uncomfortable with they and like neo pronouns. So I'm like, well, it's fine.
more of a situational thing.
Yeah. Honestly, if you're trans and you get me and we're close, I don't really care what pronouns you use for me.
Yeah, no, I get that. So, do you want to talk a little bit about how you came to terms with being trans and like how that affected you growing up?
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. If I ramble, feel free to stop me. I don't know how long you want these answers to be. Thank you. So, yeah, I think a lot of what made me realize I was trans growing up was like, first of all, I was into a lot of um, like fandom basically. I was really into anime. And a lot of like more popular pairings in anime are like gay boys. And at the time, I thought I was identified as a girl. I was dating a girl, and I was so confused as to why I cared and related more to the like gay like boy ships than like the lesbians. I was like, wait, I'm attracted to boys, but like in a boy way. I didn't know how to explain it. And I felt bad. I thought I just didn't like lesbians. I thought I was being misogynist or something. And eventually I was, yeah, eventually I realized that a lot of why I identified with like male anime characters in those ships is because I felt more masculine and definitely not like a girl. Um, and yeah, and I think especially with anime, a lot of the male characters are more soft and sort of feminine, um, and like um, yeah, they're not as like tough and like hard as like in like American media, and so a lot of that was me realizing like, oh, I can be a boy in this way. Um, but yeah, and another thing that helped was having trans friends, because without that I would have never even tried using different pronouns or names, and I probably would have been closeted for much longer, um, and maybe may not have even figured my shit out. So
Yeah,
I
no, I get
think
that.
that's my answer.
So you talked a little bit about being in like a same-sex relationship with a woman. Do you want to talk about a little bit about other labels that you've tried on that you don't feel like fit now, but were important to your identity growing up?
Yeah. I mean, from the start, I identified as bi. Um, After realizing I like had a crush on a woman, I was like, or a girl, I guess, because we were young. Because I was like, I still like guys, so I'm not full, I'm not just like lesbian. Um, and eventually, I identified as pan, and I think like pansexuality was an important label to me when I was younger, because I felt like I didn't have to define my attraction by gender. It was just I'm a person who loves all people. Um, and as I got older, I realized like it didn't really match. And as I sort of found my own masculinity and realized that I could love other forms of masculinity, I was like, oh, I'm gay. Um, but yeah, the pan thing was definitely important to me as a child. And now that I'm older and have critical thought, I'm like, oh, okay, that label doesn't mean as much to me anymore. Um, and honestly, labels like sexuality wise don't mean a lot to me anymore. Um, but yeah, also I would say non-binary definitely meant a lot to me because again, it's kind of an umbrella term. Um, and I sort of jumped between like, oh, agender, bigender, gender fluid, and never really felt that any of them sticked as well as just non-binary.
Yeah, no, I get that. That makes total sense.
And definitely, yeah, trans mask too. I was like, oh, I'm not boy, but I'm masculine.
Exactly. Like it's like not boy, but like kind of like a little bit boy.
Yeah, a way to describe being boy in quotation marks.
Boy, but like lowercase.
Boy with an asterisk.
So were there any physical spaces that caused like any fear or distress for you after coming out, like bathrooms, locker rooms, schools, churches, that kind of thing?
Yeah, interesting. I will say I don't have a lot of bathroom fear that a lot of people have. And I think that's mostly because I kind of just pass as like a weird looking girl. So going into women's restroom, I'm like, I don't care that much. I've never felt the fear as much, and that's also kind of just a privilege that I have, living in like the area that I do, and also being a white person. Um, but yeah, I mean, for me as like a fat person, locker rooms have always been a danger, not dangerous, but like scary place.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember even like having a roommate for the first time in high school. I went to boarding school. I was nervous about like being like perceived as gay, and then if they thought I was like more of a boy, would they like not want to room with me? Um, and I ended up not being super close to that roommate, so it didn't really matter. And I wasn't really out, so it didn't matter. Like she knew I was gay, but didn't really care. Um, so not really, yeah. Um, and I definitely, I think, um, like in terms of like spaces where I physically felt uncomfortable, definitely like trying to figure out what swimwear to wear. Because once again, like I already have the added complication of being fat. And then it was like, well, I don't like my chest and like I don't know what to do with my body. And like swimwear is a very it's a
And
it's a
it's not,
kind of clothing that's not very neutral. It really isn't. Like I wanted the support as like a fat person of like cups or whatever, like padding.
yeah, like
But
comfort,
then but
comfortable.
then like that made me feel dysphoric because it was like adding to my chest. It wasn't fun.
It wasn't a good time.
Um
No.
yeah, I only recently got swimwear that like is also a binder and I haven't really used it yet because it's like about to be warm enough to swim, but we'll see how it goes.
Was there any unique challenges that you faced when you were a child because of your age and gender identity like intersecting? Like something that wouldn't typically affect like cis adolescents or trans adults?
Um, hmm. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really come out until like, I want to say I was like 17, between 17 and 18. Um, so I kind of, and I still haven't done any like physical transitioning. And I know like I had friends especially who were finding it really hard to go on T and get top surgery because of being under 18. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really think, I think a lot of it was just the fact that I was a kid and like the fact that it's really hard to like have complex emotions and understand them when you're a kid.
And a lot of stuff took a lot of figuring out and a lot of not even research, but just exposure to people around me and new ideas and like openness that the kids are a little more stubborn about. I definitely was more hard on myself as a kid. Like I need to fit into this label. And as an adult, I'm kind of like I exist and I'm happy with that.
Who cares what I call myself?
Exactly. You're just
yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of it was just, for me, a lot of the struggles of being trans as a kid were just that being a kid is already so hard. And then being trans on top of it was like, well, now I'm even more embarrassed about my body and like my identity. And it's even harder to find my place in the world. And even though I didn't face any like specific like struggles with physically transitioning or socially transitioning, it was definitely hard to like exist as a trans person. And again, I'm very lucky I had trans friends because they helped me a lot just to like feel safe, at least in some space, even if I wasn't, because I was out with my friends for a while and I didn't come out to like the general population of people who are around me until like the end of high school. So
coming out like, if you don't mind sharing.
Say it again. What's up?
What was coming out like?
It was interesting. I mean, again, with my trans friends, wasn't really coming out. It was just kind of like, hey, try these pronouns for me. And they're like, okay. At school, it was less of a coming out and more of a slowly asking to use they them pronouns, like informally, because I like went to a private boarding school and they had a lot of scenarios where like you'd introduce yourself and they encouraged you to say your pronouns out loud, because it was also an all-girls high school, and they were trying to encourage like not assuming that everyone uses she her, and I started saying she they and then they them, and that was like kind of my coming out. And I had a friend who we sort of bonded over being non-binary, and eventually I was like, oh, I also kind of go by this name. But yeah, I didn't really come out at school. Most of the coming out process was with my family. And I literally came out to them like towards the end of the summer through an essay that I wrote in school about being non-binary that I just kind of tweaked to be basically a coming out letter. And I remember my favorite response, I sent it to my immediate family in an email, and my brother responded like pretty shortly after with just, oh, cool, thanks, good to know. And I think that was the best response. I was like, wow, easy enough. I think my sister pretty much already knew because we went to the same school. But my parents had like a weird talk with me about it and then pretended to ignore it as I went off to like my senior year of boarding school. And then quarantine happened and I was stuck at home and my parents were like, so what's up with the trans thing? And I basically had to come out again. And because I came out as one name and then changed my name like throughout that year, and then was using that name for college stuff. And my dad was like, why are you using this name? You came out to us with this name. It's like, my bad. I'm so busy with being in quarantine, I forgot to tell you. So it was definitely stressful. I remember I've never necessarily been worried that my parents are going to kick me out because I know that even if they didn't really approve. They approved enough that it wasn't like they would completely disown me. But I remember before coming out, I even texted my friend and was like, if by some chance I get kicked out, can I like, can I hang with you? And they were like, yeah, of course. And yeah, it was very stressful. And then there's of course the awkwardness of parents still like figuring out my pronouns. Even now, they still struggle a little bit. They got my name, but and like, oh, my extended family was hard because my parents were like, oh, you should draft an email to that we can send to all of them. And then I took too long writing an email, and they were like, we'll just do it. And my extended family, especially my grandparents, are not good with pronouns, but they try their best with the name. And honestly, that's all I could ask for. I don't need them to be perfect. I'm just glad they know, and I don't really care what they think. I'm just, yeah. I think coming out was stressful because I just couldn't be sure of the reaction, and now I'm like, whatever, there's awkwardness, I don't care.
It almost like matters less once you're like out on your own, because like, what are they gonna
Yeah.
do? Let me, I'm in another state. Like,
Oh yeah, and definitely I think quarantine was also more stressful because it was like the extended family doesn't know, and my mom like accidentally called me they or River or something in front of my grandmother, and then like corrected herself, and my grandmother, I don't think, noticed, but I was like, I don't care, mom, like whatever. Yeah, I feel like a lot of my experience just is stressful because of like associated stress. Like, I'm pretty lucky to have a fairly supportive family. I think the nicest thing my dad ever said was like, even if I don't understand, I still love you, or something along those lines. And I was like tearing up a little. I was like, oh, Dad, that's so sweet. Yeah. My dad's also, side note, my dad's a fisherman, and he thought it was cute that I picked the name River because he fishes, so.
so I feel like a lot of trans and gender nonconforming individuals feel like a pressure to conform to just one gender, or just like they're completely seen as an outcast. Is that something you've experienced, and like how has that experience like shaped how you experience your own like trans identity?
Yeah, like I said, I definitely for a while was like, wait, am I just a trans guy in denial? And because I realized that like I didn't hate he, him pronouns. And I didn't relate to this sort of non-binary experience of not wanting to be a girl or a boy. I was kind of like, I don't hate the idea of being a boy. And it definitely, it was pretty hard for a while. I think I also knew a lot of trans guys, not a lot, a couple trans guys who are a little more traditionally masculine and had like height dysphoria and like wanted to wear like very, again, like basketball shorts, the button down shirts, and the more like they just wanted to like be like simple guys. And I didn't relate to that. And so I was like, maybe I'm not a trans guy, or like not a guy at all. And I struggled a lot with realizing that like there's no one way to be any gender. And again, I think it was a lot of like being a kid and not understanding that you can present one way and identify another, and that every person is going to assume you're something different. So just like do what you're comfortable with. And like, it's kind of funny because I'm at this weird point where I'm like, a lot of people who like aren't exposed to trans people just think I'm like a lesbian, and I think that's really funny because I'm totally the opposite of that. But yeah, it was definitely hard to sort of realize again that I could like be a boy, but like I didn't have to be like, I hate being short and I want facial hair, and Like, I'm mad that I don't have a penis, and like all this stuff that I was just like didn't relate to.
How would you describe your personal style and gender presentation?
Ooh. I don't know. I think since I was younger, I definitely leaned more neutral in my presentation. I was not a huge fan of skirts and dresses for a while. Again, I think a lot of it overlaps with the fact that I'm fat and I grew up that way. Um, so I had a complicated relationship with my body, and I still do. My style currently is kind of just like some little guy, some scene emo kid. Um, I wiped it off before I sat down, but I wear a lot of eyeliner um, and like sometimes colorful eyeshadow because it's fun. I've always got this freaking striped shirt on and my bracelets. I'm not wearing my jewelry. I have a lot of necklaces. I always have this little ring on. Yeah, I'm just a funky little guy. Sometimes I wear some dog ears and shit. Yeah, I just dress like a little freak. That's what I like to do. I like that people look at me because I know what I did to make them look at me. Like, if you're gonna stare at me, I need to know it's because I did something cool.
As I feel like as your boyfriend, I would be a bad interviewer if I did not mention this. But every single time they come over my house, there's always just like a pile of accessories on my desk, and it's always like at least a foot, like it's like a foot wide. It takes up like half the desk. It's so funny, and it's
Yeah, it's hard to see, but I do have my little cart of accessories back there, and there's like deodorant and stuff too. But then I also have my like pile of earrings and my entire pencil case full of candy because I have so much of it. I need a new thing to put it in because if I make any more, it will not fit in there.
I think that's gonna be really cute to add in. So many discussions about trans identity often include a lot of hardships and a lot of queer pain. Do you have any examples of trans joy that you've experienced? And do you think that being trans is an overall positive experience?
Yeah, I mean, the way I always frame it is that being trans and like dysphoria, I'll say it this way, dysphoria isn't a symptom of being trans, it's what happens when you're trans in our current society. Because dysphoria basically wouldn't exist if there wasn't transphobia and these gender roles, because you wouldn't care if you're a short guy because it doesn't matter. You wouldn't care if you had facial hair or if your voice sounded a certain way. You wouldn't care because there isn't this pressure to pass and to stay safe and all of that. So I forgot where I was going with that, but oh my God, I experienced a lot of trans joy. For me, being trans has it's made me so much happier because I'm just who I am. Changing my name meant a lot to me. And meeting other trans people and I feel free. I have a lot, like me and my friends, again, I think only maybe one or two of my friends is not trans, and we have a good time. Trans joy is when I am with my friends, and we definitely have our struggles, but we also celebrate together. We've given each other tea shots, and I was there when my friend like got her first estrogen pill. I think she was doing pills, and yeah, I've witnessed a lot of trans and queer suffering, and I try and make every day just I'm trans and I'm so happy that I'm trans. And if you have any problem with me, you don't matter. My favorite quote, I think it's Dr. Seuss. It's so cheesy. those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And that's how I roll with it.
I just wanted to know if being trans had impacted like your professional life at all.
Mm.
Has
Yeah, I mean,
prevented you from
um,
jobs, that kind of thing.
yeah, it's hard because I kind of still apply to jobs as female because my ID says female. Um, and I don't want to be out at all jobs because I just never know what's safe. Um, and I usually go by my dead name, or I'm just like, oh, I use her as a nickname, haha. And they're like, okay, cute. Thanks, girl. And I'm like, sure. um, but yeah, I mean, I haven't really been out, so I haven't necessarily lost opportunities. I definitely have had awkward moments of like, oh, you forgot to tell us what your birth name is, or like your legal name, and or I tell them that I go by River and they don't listen, even in just applications, because I've been applying to a lot of jobs for this summer. Um, but yeah, and I mean, in terms of school, I'm really lucky because my college has just like a name change form where you basically just put in the name you want to be called, and the only like department that knows your legal name is just like financial aid and like more administration roles. Like I accidentally like put my dead name to my RA, and luckily she's my friend, so she was like, why'd you put this name? It's just listed as River. And I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't know what they'd give you if they'd give you like my legal name or something. But yeah, it hasn't done much like professionally as far as I know. I think it makes it harder to like feel completely safe at jobs, and because I know like they're not really gonna know who I am, and like it's definitely been hard to like there was someone I like got along with at my summer job last year, and she gave me like her Instagram or her Snapchat or something, and I was like, I can't follow you. I have my pronouns in my bio, and all of my art is about being gay, and I don't know how you're gonna feel about this. So, but there was also a coworker who just straight up asked me my pronouns, and I was like, she, her, I'm not outing myself. And then a minute later, she's like, yeah, I learned about pronouns from Twitter, and I was like, it's probably a good idea I didn't out myself to you. I'm sure you'd be fine, but I'm not about to open that can of worms. Oh yeah, that's like, this is a total tangent, but that's something I definitely think a lot of trans people are really adamant about being like um like educators and teaching people about transness, and I am way too scared for that, and I'd rather be safe and comfortable than
Honestly, comfortability matters more because some people are in the space to be able to do that, but not everyone has that
yeah,
privilege, and it's a lot dangerous. It's a lot more dangerous for some people to do that rather than others. And
yeah,
your safety is more important, you know?
yeah. I don't mind doing it with like other students or like even coworkers because I work at my school. But like outside of school and like my close friends, I'm not about to be the first trans person who's like opening their heart to you, because sometimes that's not,
You don't
there's
want to
not
be
going
the
to be
role model,
positivity.
you know?
Hmm?
You don't want to be like the role model for like, oh, this
Yeah.
person based all trans people off of me.
Yeah, and again, some people like that and like to educate and have thick enough skin to do that, but it's never been my forte. And I think even like with being queer overall, like when I was younger, I was like, I have to be an activist and I have to educate and correct everyone. And now I'm just like, if you got that wrong, I'm just going to be annoyed at you. And I'll explain if I have the energy, but I've run out of energy to explain to everyone what everything means. It's exhausting.
I know you mentioned a little bit about your sexuality being a bit ambiguous and not really adhering to a specific label. I know as someone who is T for T, obviously you know that. It definitely being trans has had an impact in the way I experience sex and sexual relationships, and also interpersonal relationships as well. I happen to be aromantic, but like if you have had any of those types of relationships, has your gender identity affected those at all?
I mean, since I've like fully come out, I've only been in like 1.5 relationships. And only one of them was in person. So I'm still kind of figuring out how my transness affects things. It definitely, like, I know we met on a dating app. And I know I definitely was having some nerves interacting with guys. Like, sometimes I didn't know if they were trans. Sometimes I'd be like, you have trans vibes. And then they'd say something about, I don't know, they'd say something where I was just like, oh, never mind, you're cis. And then I'd have to like explain. There was one person who I almost hooked up with who was like, I've never hooked up with a girl before. And I was like, I'm not a girl, but okay. And so there's definitely some like dating nerves I've had. And even like just seeing cute people around like my college or school, I'm always kind of like, well, I know this person's into guys, but would they be into me? Because I know the definition of guy is more strict for some people. But yeah, most of it has just been like, I definitely, like, I'm T for T like you, at least preferentially.
It's like T for T asterisks.
Yeah, T for T unless you are on my approved list of cisgenders.
It's like 4 people that you just like picked with like a dartboard or something.
T for T unless you pass my gauntlet test. You have to beat me in a Pokemon battle.
So my last question is, if you could, talk to someone who is a trans kid or like first coming out of their or first starting their coming out process, would you have any advice for them?
Oh, I don't have enough time to say all my advice. I'm gonna tear up just thinking about it. Oh my goodness. I mean, my biggest thing is just like, don't be so hard on yourself. Oh my goodness, don't be so hard on yourself. Lord knows the world is gonna be so tough on you. If everyone else is gonna put you down, be nice to yourself, please. Don't worry about finding a super specific label that explains, oh, I'm crying a little bit, everything about your experience. Don't worry about if your crush likes you, or if like, just let yourself be. Like, let your body be what it is, let your feelings be what they are. Keep your friends close and make sure they know that you love them. Yeah, just be nice to yourself, please. Everyone can be so mean, so at least be nice to yourself. Oh my goodness.
Very well put, babe.
Oh, I'm gonna cry.
It's okay.
Thinking about trans children makes me emotional. Literally, my brother came out to me and I was like sobbing. I was like, oh my god, trans children, trans youth. I'm losing my mind. Oh,
they're just so vulnerable. It makes me.
They're just little, and I need to wrap them up in a bow and protect them. Oh, even just my high school friend's younger brother, I was one of the first people he came out to, and I was like, I don't even know what to tell you. I'm just crying. I don't know what advice to give you. I'm just crying because you're small and you're trans.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
I can't keep the glasses on. I'm crying.
It's like a weird emotional thing. I understand. You've been a really good interview. I'm very proud of you. And
thank you. Sorry for losing it.
No, you're doing fine, hon. It's okay.
I can't help it. The trans youth got me.
Same.
Oh, gotta clean my glasses.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me. I'll talk to you soon, and I really appreciate you doing the interview.